Well, good morning and welcome to another vlog from Narrowboats Super B. Today we are in the village of Shardlow. It is their very first festival. They hope to do one every year, and it's the festival of Shardlow's inland port. Behind me you'll see the River Trent, and it's from the River Trent that all this started. So we're going to take the camera round to all the various different buildings, go down to the canal, and then have a look at some of the boats down there and a bit of history behind Shardlow. So Shardlow has been in existence since the Bronze Age, and it provided a natural crossing point on the River Trent, and all along this river they found remains of wooden bridges dating back from Saxon times. From around 1750, industries such as pottery and textiles were rapidly growing, and because the road was so bad, the factory owners had great difficulty in moving both raw material and the finished goods. Rivers had always been used for transport. So across the road there you're looking at the 18th century Broughton House, and next to it is the Navigation Public House, built in 1789, and they're both built by the Sutton family. And across there you'll get a view of many of the warehouses that were built to accommodate when the canal all started up, and these have now been used for other things. So the bridge that we stood on now was rebuilt in 1936, and it used to be called the Idle Bridge, and this was because boat and port workers would wait beside it for offers of casual work. And then if we look over, there's now a cottage, that's a former salt warehouse, and where the queue is, that's the Holden House. So as we were saying, James Brindley designed the Trent and Mersey Canal, and it was opened in 1977, linking the two rivers, the Trent and the Mersey. And because of this, Shardlow rapidly developed as an inland port, and the population grew from 200 in 1780 to over 1,300 residents in 1841, by which time the railways were competing for the trade and the waterway started to decline. So what we're going to do is have a walk down now and just see what boats are on the canal. That building to your right is the number 1 mill, built in 1816, and that was restored as part of the Shardlow town scheme. This little wooden bridge that we're coming to now, you're actually crossing a wharf inlet, and this was filled in many years ago. And if we have a look over this fence, all that at one time was a wharf, and boats would pull up to there and unload. And this white crane, that was installed by Zachary Smith, and it was to lift bottles and crates when the building was a bottling store in the second half of the 19th century. And there's another familiar narrowboat and canal name, Fellows, Morton and Clayton Limited. And this is one of the working boats that are on display. And these working boats, they've been kept in really good condition, and it's down to the dedication of the people who own them. There's a lot of work been done on them to keep them up to the standard at which we see them today. So as we're saying, Shardlow rapidly developed as an inland port. So with the introduction of the railways and the canals competing for trade, the waterway started to decline. Shardlow was forced to react to this, and many warehouses that you see now that were built for cargo transshipment were required to earn their keep in other ways. Many of these were converted into warehouses, mills, grain stores and workshops, and the last grain boat delivered its cargo to Shardlow in the early 1950s. Coming right forward, in 1974 the port area of Shardlow was designated a conservation area, and this has prevented any further demolition to any of the buildings, and most of the remaining original buildings are again serving a useful purpose. And this is some of the work that's been done and is still being done by the Erewash Canal Preservation and Development Association. Lots of these warehouses you can see now date right back to the 1860s, 1794, 1770s. And this boat we're coming to now, the purple boat, this is available for hire. Get yourself on the Trent and Mersey for a few days or a week. I don't know what the price is, but I was told it includes tuition and fuel, and they'll just show you how to go on. I think it'll seat 2 people comfortably, or probably 4 people. And this lady spins all her own yarn, her own wool, and everything that you can see on the boat for sale, she has made.
Are you spinning again? You were doing that yesterday when I came down?
I was doing different stuff yesterday. Yesterday's was green, today's is blue.
So as you can see, plenty of boats came down for this, and we're heading down now towards the start of the Trent and Mersey. And looking over the canal, you can see the malt shovel, formerly known as a dewdrop, and this was built in 1799 by Humphrey Moore, and it was built as a manager's house for the adjacent brewery. And then looking further down, you've got the new inn, and in fact this is probably one of the oldest, and this was built in the 1770s and was known as Mary Cope's Beer House. So we walk on down now, and there you can see a little miniature railway, and that track goes all over that lawn, just on a little close up there, but that track goes right the way round. It goes in a full circle, right the length of the garden. And there's one of the many arms that sprung off this canal, went to different warehouses. A lot have been filled in. This one here was kept obviously by the residents of that house now, but that was a little arm that shot off to a warehouse or an unloading bay. And here's a little trip boat. This was running all day, every day, Saturday and Sunday, 3 boat trips, and this was all run as part of the Shardlow festival. And what we're looking at now was known as Warehouse B. This was built in 1780, and it allowed boats to be loaded and unloaded undercover. It's now known as the Clock Warehouse. Now the Clock Warehouse was for the storage of goods, and it was used as a transfer between riverboats and then narrowboats. The reason they went from riverboats to narrowboats was because only narrowboats could navigate the 7 feet wide locks beyond Burton-on-Trent. And then from here, and from the boats, they went to the road, which is adjacent, and this was the transport by road, and that's the main London to Manchester road that runs through the village. The building we're looking at now was originally built in 1777, and it was known as Warehouse A. But in 1996, it was re-established as the Shardlow Heritage Centre, and that's an original salt warehouse. The centre these days is run by a small group of volunteers, and they do research and they preserve the history of the village and its port. So this is the back of the Heritage Centre, or the old salt warehouse, as we say, built in 1777, and the bridge that you can see these cars going over, that's the Idle Bridge, and that's the London to Manchester road, which is part of the A6. A lot of these buildings you can see are in need of some sort of repair. The problem is, because they're grade 2 listed, you have to have special techniques, you have to use a different type of mortar. I think it's a lime mortar. There's a lot of work involved, and it's very expensive, and somebody's got to pay for it, and that's the problem that the village is having. They want to preserve these buildings, they just haven't got the money to do it. The building you can see here is still used to this very day. The ground floor is storage for items that you would hire out for weddings and things like that. There's all sorts in there, but that's still being used today. Now we go back to this house here, Broughton House. There's a story behind it, and both houses were owned by people who owned or part-owned boat companies. The original house that was there to start with is this one here. The Sutton family built theirs just behind those trees to block their view of the River Trent. That's how competition worked in those days, I suppose. This is that salt warehouse that we looked at earlier, obviously now been converted into a private residence with some familiar faces in the window. And looking over the canal, there's the clock warehouse, and you can see the archway where the boats used to go in to be unloaded. And now we're just walking up the towpath towards the lock. So there we're looking at the lock keeper's cottage, and you notice the windows on each end of the house as well, looking both up and down the canal. And then on the other side, which is now a private residence, was once the Canal Tavern, and that brewed its own ale, baked its own bread and butchered fresh meat for the boatmen. Well, that's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If you like it, hit the like button, and if you'd like to subscribe, please do. And if you hit the notification bell, it'll let you know when I send a video out. I will get down sometime to finish off my home boat. The last few weekends I've spent at these different festivals. I think there's one coming up, the last one of the year, Brown Hills Festival down Birmingham Way, which I hope to get to this coming weekend. So thanks for watching, and see you again. Bye bye.